Hi folks, welcome to GCSE Geography. At Stratton, geography is a really popular subject, and over the last 10 months you've probably had a really reasonable flavour of what we've got to offer. Now it's time to consider if you want to become a GCSE geographer, and so I'm going to talk you through what the course entails and what we do. Geography is here, it's now, it's happening on our doorstep and much further afield. Cool thing is there are so many transferable skills within the geography course, and that makes someone who has this qualification really appealing to not just future employers but further education providers as well. And because of this, the types of jobs that geographers find themselves doing range from everything from teaching, like me, through to meteorology, so tracking, predicting and monitoring the weather, through to journalism and even environmental law. There is a huge range that you can do with this qualification if you choose to. So learning about geography is not all just colouring in and map work, although we make plenty of time for both. We try to take as practical an approach to the work that we cover with you as we possibly can. And the equipment that we use ranges from everything like Play-Doh all the way through to whiteboards. We use cake, and we've even been known to break open the strawberry laces to try and jazz up some graph and map work that you might be doing. Where we can, we try and take things out in the field because that's where you really get to become a geographer. At Stratton, we're known for our trips, both abroad and within the UK as well. And there is a compulsory element of your GCSE where you have to go out onto the field to conduct some of that research. We do keep that stuff in the UK. The international trips are completely voluntary. There is an academic side to geography too. And as geographers, we need to be analytical, we need to make connections between different concepts, problem solve and evaluate the world around us. We also have to be able to use real life examples wherever possible to support the points that we make. And so each unit of work that we do will encompass all of these things, and you will have a case study attached to every single unit of work as well. The exam board that we work with is AQA, and we support you with a wealth of resources. We've got everything from textbooks and exam practice guides all the way through to homemade revision books and revision sessions that we run as well. Okay, so the exams. There are 3 exams for this course, but please don't let that put you off. Paper 1 is the physical geography paper, and this is where 35% of your final GCSE. We teach the majority of this in year 10, and you've already started, so that's the good news. The work that you will have done in year 9 around earthquakes is the starting point for this paper, and we delve just that little bit deeper into the theory, and we look at other hazards including hurricanes and weather hazards, and then we move into climate change and what that is and how we can try to adapt and mitigate it. Section B of this paper then focuses on the world biomes, so we look at different ecosystems and we specifically narrow in on tropical rainforests and cold environments. The Malaysia rainforest is one of the case studies we look at, so we look at the issues affecting that. And then we also look at Alaska and the extreme conditions that are there with the challenges and the opportunities that are presented. Section C of this paper is all UK based, and again this is going to be really familiar for you because most of you will have covered quite a lot of this content at Key Stage 3. So we look at coastal and river landscapes, building on all of those fundamentals that you learned in middle school. And that brings us to paper 2. Paper 2, we normally begin at the very end of year 10 and into year 11, and this is the human-based paper. The reason we keep this one for year 11 is it does require a slightly higher level of analytical and critical thinking, which hopefully you've already built up by that stage anyway. In this section we cover all things human, and we start off by looking at the urban issues, and that's developing on the work that you're currently doing in year 9. So again, you've already started it. We look at Rio de Janeiro for that one, and then we look at Bristol in the UK, an obvious comparison, I know. Section B of this paper then looks at the development of countries all around the world, so we look at changing economic world, and we delve into the history of both Nigeria and the UK and how their histories have then impacted upon their ability to develop. Section C is a really nice little unit, and that looks specifically at the idea that although there is more than enough core resources for everyone on our planet, so I mean by that food, water and energy, it's just not distributed evenly. And so we look at different examples of that, and then we start to look specifically at food and how we might go about increasing food supply for countries who don't. And finally, that brings us on to paper 3. Paper 3 is different from the other two. This one is worth 30%, and this is where your skills as a geographer really get a chance to shine. So you're asked to do a lot of evaluation and interpretation for this section. Section A is all about issues evaluation, and that comes in the form of a pre-release booklet. So you don't get to see that booklet, neither do we, until the March of your year 11. So it's all a bit of a surprise, and it's very exciting when it gets revealed. The cool thing is though, we spent about 6 lessons breaking down this booklet, breaking it apart, answering questions, interpreting it, and then that very same booklet will be in the final exam that you sit in the May or the June. And because we've spent so much time poring over it and breaking it down and evaluating it, you're going to find that a much more comfortable part of the exam that you sit. Section B is the fieldwork section, and that's where you get to write about your investigation. You were there on the field, carrying out all the data collection, analysing all your results, and that's what you take into the exam with you. So tends to sit a little bit better in your head. Some of the most desirable skills that employers look for are really harnessed in this aspect of geography, and it sets you up really, really well for any sort of research or investigative or critical or evaluative thinking that you might need to do at a later stage. Okay, so I spoke a lot about the skills that we expect of our geographers. Now it's your turn, and I want you to think like a geographer. On the screen is a cartoon. And what I would like you to do is take your brain through 3 levels of thinking. So you're going to start off with the bronze level, thinking about what you can physically see in this cartoon. You're going to move on to the silver level, where you start thinking about the messages and the meanings behind it. And then the gold level, can you come up with any consequences of the things that you've identified? I'm going to give you just a minute to think about it. Feel free to jot them down, and then we'll go over the answers. With the bronze then, literally saying what you see, what can you pull out? You might have picked up there's a big bag of money there. We look like we've got some quite well-off, happy-looking Westerners on one side. They've got reasonable clothing, some luxury goods as well. You might have picked up that there was a bit of a gap in between the 2 groups of people that are there, with the other side looking slightly thinner, not as happy, really simple clothing. They don't have any shoes, and there's certainly no luxury items. With regards to the messages and what you can infer from that then, things like indicating one side of the gap is slightly better off than the other. Wealthier people tend to have surplus food and access to resources. So this idea that the better off you are, the more you have. We talked about a physical gap when we were doing bronze, but maybe for your silver level thinking, you might have considered the idea that there's a metaphorical gap as well in terms of the education, the healthcare, or even the sorts of jobs that are available. That would then lead to maybe perhaps the indication that there was a lack of food, electricity, resource, income. And then you might have finally come to the conclusion that the world is just not equal or even in any way, shape, or form. For those of you that managed to hit the gold level, well done. And what I was hoping that you might have come up with was this idea that a gap in wealth would then also mean a gap in the ability for somewhere to develop. So without access to education and healthcare and decent jobs, people who live in poorer countries would just not be able to develop at the same rate as those countries who have all of these things. Just before I wrap up, I just wanted to give you a bit of a flavour of some of the work that gets produced by our GCSE geographers. As you can see, we don't have one set style of learning. We try to mix it up as much as possible. And there's a really good mix of map work, graphs, diagrams, sketches, writing, labelling, annotating, and even some colouring in and sticking. And so I just want to leave you with some final thoughts on the screen there for you. And if you've got any questions about geography, if you're not sure if it's the right choice for you, if you've still got more questions about what the course entails, please, please, please reach out to one of us and ask. We're all just on the end of an email, and I look forward to seeing some of you in GCSE Geography in a few months' time.